Afternoon, everybody. I hope you can hear me. My name is Dr. Ciara Brannock, and I am the course director of the MA History of Family. And I'd like to welcome you all this afternoon to our webinar. So I'm delighted to be joined this afternoon by my colleague, Dr. Rachel Murphy, whom you will see on the screen, and by some of my former students. Barbara Watts, who is in Canada at the moment, Stuart Clancy, who's in Limerick, and Ian Walsh, who is in Waterford, all here in Ireland. I should also add as well that the students that are on the seminar this afternoon are also PhD students in the department. If you're having any difficulties with regards to sound or with regards to getting in touch with us, there is a live Q&A event at the end of this, but you can submit questions on the right hand side. Okay, so I'll make a start on the next slide, Rachel. So I've gone through number one there, which is the welcome and the introduction, and I'm going to move on to talk in a moment about the University of Limerick itself. And again, just to give you a little bit of an idea of what it's like to be a student here at the University of Limerick. And then my colleague, Dr. Murphy, is going to talk about the course itself. Then Dr. Murphy will hand back to me, and I'll talk you through the various different, the process of applying to the university. And then after that, we'll pass you over to our wonderful students, Barbara, Stuart and Ian, and they will talk about what it was like for them to study the MA History of Family online and on campus and in a blended capacity here at the University of Limerick. And then it'll be followed by some questions at the end. So, Rachel, if you could have the next slide, it'd be great. So, technology will always fail us on days like today, but anyway, that's what we all look like, and we are a friendly lot. And my apologies, there seems to be interference on my side here. Okay, sorry about that. I don't know. So yeah, this is the team. This myself and Rachel, Ian, Barbara, Stuart, and our wonderful convener this afternoon, Una Grace, who is one of our administrators here in the department and has done some great work for us in identifying you all today. So if you could move on to the next slide, Rachel. So the University of Limerick is a young enough university by Irish standards. It was established in 1972, and it is located in the Midwest on the banks of the Shannon. It's I think one of Ireland's, without question, it's Ireland's most beautiful campus. The mighty River Shannon runs through it, and you're looking there at a picture of what's known as the Living Bridge, which is an architectural and engineering feat in its own right, but it links the old and the new campus to one another. The University of Limerick currently has 16,500 students and approximately 1,700 staff. And it is a pioneer in many respects with regards to online and blended education. And we're very much focused on accessibility and ensuring that people from underrepresented backgrounds in Ireland and worldwide have an opportunity to study with us. The MA History of Family has two criteria. So for some of you, you may or may not have an undergraduate degree in history, and I invite you to send me an email to discuss the possibility of actually coming on the course. We have a second criteria for people who come from the University of Life. And of course, you're very welcome to study with us. And we take a professional experience into consideration as well. So people who are, say, for example, professional genealogists, librarians, people coming from other disciplines, we're very interested in talking to you if you want to study with us. So if you want to move on there, Rachel. So the Department of History is, it's a small enough department, but we're a busy one. And we have 4 MA programs. We have an MA History, MA History of Family, MA Local History, and the MA in Public History and Cultural Heritage. Our department has expertise in Irish, European, British, colonial history, in the history of the Middle East. We have research strengths primarily, though, in Irish history, and that would be my own research domain. And of course, that of everybody here with you today, Dr. Murphy and Barbara, Stuart, and Ian. So if you would like, yeah, sorry, Rachel, if you want to move on to the next slide.
Okay. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about the course now. So welcome everyone. And the course itself started running in 2005, and Dr. Brannock was instrumental. She set that up, and it really is the first class of its kind. And obviously we have a good track record of running this since that point in time. There's been many students who have gone through this course. And one of the things that I think students really appreciate about it is its flexibility. So you can study on campus in blended format, as Kira just said there, which means you're doing some online learning and some on campus as well, or you can be completely online. And ever since the start of the course, we've had students from all over the world who have been in the classes. And you can also take the course either full-time, which takes 1 year, or part-time, meaning over 2 years. One thing I would say that is we're very flexible about this. So even if you happen to be an online student, we had a student last year from Australia who wanted to come over to Ireland for 2 months. So she was online for most of the time, but then she joined us in the classroom for the 2 months that she was over. And we love the fact that it is, we adapt the students in that way. So who are the students? Well, I've mentioned they come from a wide range of locations. Listed there are just some of the countries. Barbara, who will be speaking to you later on, is from Canada herself. This year I've got students from England, France, Germany, Australia, as well as Ireland. There's obviously a lot of people from Ireland who do the course too. The USA, Wales, so a wide range of different countries. It tends to be ones where people maybe have family history, Irish family history themselves, but not exclusively. And then Kira's already touched on this, but in terms of the backgrounds that people come from, obviously the people who have an interest in history or genealogy as well, local history, but we have people that have degrees in a wide range of subjects. So this year there's someone with a degree in medicine, there's others from social sciences. And what we really value is that there's people from a lot of different backgrounds who are able to share their experiences with each other. So it's a really enriched environment, I think, in which to study. And we really do value the different ranges of life experience. So we will have people who have come straight from their history degree, maybe, people that are working full time, people that are carers who wouldn't be able to come to college unless they could study online, and also retirees as well. So it's a lovely range of students that are taking the course. So I wanted to give you an outline of what is involved on a practical level. So you have the 2 semesters. In semester 1, which starts in September, there are 4 main modules that you would be studying. The first one, HI 6041, Introduction to the History of Family, is where we teach the theory behind it and how to apply that to your own research. And what we find is people really enjoy this academic grounding in terms of understanding different approaches to conducting your family history research. I know some of you are genealogists, and it's really complementary to the kind of work that you might be doing. So we look at different theories. So we will look at things like there's a demographics approach where we're looking at statistics and numbers and looking at populations, household structures, and so on. We look at the sentiments approach, which is looking at things like letters and diaries and trying to understand why people acted the way that they did, their emotions, their values, and so on. And then there's also the household economics approach, where we look at families and why they made the decisions they made. You know, so some people in a family might migrate, some might stay and work on the family farm, some might move to an urban environment, and so on. HI 6061 is looking at families and communities. So there we take a broader perspective, and we're looking at things like class and gender, and then different organizations that would have touched on family lives. So things like education, religion, politics, and so on. So again, and what I'd say here as well is there's a lot of flexibility in terms of the readings that we do and the assignments that you do. So if you have a particular interest, it's something that there'll be something there for everyone, I would say. And then Irish cultural history. So this is looking more at the cultural side of things, again, students find that very interesting, looking at things from that angle too. And then all the while you're doing this, we're also teaching you in terms of how to write in a very academic way and an approachable way as well. So we're giving you the technical skills that you need, as well as the subject matter and thematic skills. And then by the time you come to semester 2, you will be expected to have already decided your dissertation topic, and we give you a lot of help. There's a lot of discussions in semester 1 around what topic you might be interested in looking at. Some people arrive with a topic very clearly in mind on day 1. Other people, are still thinking about it, and so we'll have those discussions in class. And so by the time you get to semester 2, we start helping you to think about how to research and write your dissertation. And then the other modules, so the top 3 things that you see there are all related to your dissertation. And then at the bottom there, HI 6062, People on the Move Studying Migration, is another module that we will do, looking at migration in particular from the Irish perspective. But this year I've had students looking at other angles as well. And we're looking at internal migration within Ireland, people immigrating to Ireland, and then also looking at different areas of the diaspora and the impact of Irish immigrants to other countries such as Australia, Canada, USA, and so on. And so all the while you're doing working on the dissertation, and then after you finish those 2 semesters, the focus is purely on the dissertation, which is 20,000 words. If you're a full-time student, you will complete the dissertation by early August. If you're a part-time student, then you have the rest of the next year to focus on the dissertation. So you do the modules in year 1, and then you do the dissertation in year 2. So all students have access to a virtual learning environment, and in the current climate, I think that's really important, because it means that everyone can study online, and then, as and when we're able to, people can then come back to the classroom. But there is that flexibility there depending on what happens. So everyone has access to this. On the right, you can see that's just an example of one of the pages when we were looking at migration to Australia. We do regular what we call e-tivities. So they're little learning activities, little assignments that you do to consolidate what we've learnt each week. There are forums, so you can discuss what we've been doing in class together there. And we also have video conferencing software. So it's a way of actually having live classes together. So the note there is that all students are likely to be online in semester 1, but obviously we're watching to see what happens there. Just a few things just to tell you in terms of the supports that we have. The Glucksman Library I saw today on Twitter it won another award. It's very recently been completed, and it's sort of world class in terms of the setup in the new part of the library. This thing on the right here is a crane, and those drawers each contain books, and this is I don't know the details, but it's a fantastic book storage and retrieval system. It's very cutting edge. And in the new library, there are wonderful learning spaces. It's built in an accessible way. So all of that is great for the students that will be coming on campus. Students who are online, again, you have access to everything that you need to do this course. So we have a great collection of ebooks. The library worked very hard to get those for us. You have access to articles, to various different databases, so like Ancestry, the British Parliamentary Papers, Irish Newspaper Archive, just to name a few of them. So you're very well supported as online students. And then again, we're very lucky to have a fantastic special collections and archives here at Limerick. It was established in 1998, and it focuses, I suppose, on Limerick and Munster, but then Ireland as well. So you can see on the slide here, there are 2,000 archive boxes and 40,000 printed works, and they're bringing in new material all the time. And what's again fantastic, if you are an online student, is the library is very good at digitising sources. This diary here that you can see, Henry William Massey, they digitised that. And we had a transcription workshop for students, and one of my students at the moment, who's based in France, is working on this diary Library right now for his dissertation. The emphasis is, as well as learning the theory and learning the writing and so on, and the different themes, there's also an emphasis on practical experience. And in this picture here, you can see my two colleagues on the call here, it's Stuart and Ian. And this was a crowdsourced project. Kira won a huge had a great funding opportunity from the Irish Research Council for a project, Death and Burial Data Ireland, 1864 to 1922. And she is the principal investigator for this project and has a team working with her on it. And so students were able to see what it was like to be part of an academic project and get involved in some of the transcription for that. There's also access on other projects, crowdsourced projects that we do, and also to attend academic research seminars. So we like you to get some practical experience as well. And, you know, again, it's possible to do some of these things online too. So the transcription workshops you can do online, and the crowdsourced project was also conducted online. And then field trips. So normally we have one field trip per semester. So this is actually an image from last year when we went to the Registry of Deeds. We normally go to the National Library and the National Archives, and then we have a discussion as a class as to where else the students would like to go. And last year, the Registry of Deeds was the popular one that they wanted to go to. We've also been to Henrietta Street as well. So just very briefly, we often get asked, you know, how much time does it take to do the course? And I think what Kira always says is, you know, how long is a piece of string? It really is what you want to make of it. But in terms, I suppose, of the contact time, so these seminars and so on, there's maybe 9 hours a week, but this includes, obviously it's all online. So the benefit of that is you can dip out in and out of it as and when is convenient to you. And that includes the e-activities and so on as well. And then on top of that, you know, you can do as much reading or writing as you want to. It really depends how much time you have for that. So what I'm going to do now, obviously we're happy to take questions at the end, as Kira said, but I'm now going to hand over to Kira, who is going to explain what you do next if you have found everything interesting so far. So I'll hand over to you, Kira.
Thanks very much, Rachel. With regards to, we have an open window at the moment in terms of application. So the first thing I would say is log on to the UL graduate website as soon as possible, particularly for those of you who have degrees from other countries, because it can take quite a bit of time to process the applications. So you'll see on the links there on the left that there is a link to first of all the course itself, and then from there it will tell you how to apply. I'm very happy to address any queries that you might have. If you want to send me an email, my email address is there on the right. I'm not at that phone number right now because campus is closed down, but I'm more than happy to call any of you if you're based in Ireland, or I can Skype or WhatsApp call those of you who are based abroad at a time that is suitable. I would advise with regards to the application process, because at the moment it takes a bit more time to verify degrees and to get in contact with your universities, it's taking a little bit longer than normal. We try our best to ensure that there's no delays from a UL perspective, but I would recommend for those of you who are coming back to education maybe after 10 or 15 or 20 years or longer, it might be difficult for you to get your transcripts. So if you are thinking of doing further study, perhaps make a start now and in trying to gather up your documentation. Do you want to move on to the next slide, Rachel?
Yep,
I think you have some. I think it's might be on the next slide, is it, Rachel, about the documentation?
Right. Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
Sorry. So sorry, on the previous slide there was some indication there of the fees associated with it. So again, that the fees are set by the university, but the university also allows for a flexible payment plan. And as I said, and as Rachel said also, this program is available online. If you want to move on to the next slide, Rachel. So the application process itself requires things like your qualification transcripts, certificates. If English isn't your first language, you'll need to provide an indication of your language qualification, and all transcripts, certificates, etc. If they're not in English, you'll need to have certified English translations, and also a copy of your birth certificate, which is the long document. Our colleagues in the graduate office are very prompt and very good, and will guide you if you're in any difficulties. And of course, both myself and Rachel are available to you also if you have any queries. Would you like to move on there, Rachel? So here's some screen grabs of what the application process looks like. So on the link in the previous slide, I think 3 slides ago, you'll see where you can apply for the full-time or the part-time program. I actually want to come back to the matter of time and how long it takes. I found that over the years, and I've been teaching on the MA History of Family since 2005, and we have had an array of students with full-time jobs, caring responsibilities, absolutely marvelous people who've managed to complete the degree in 1 year. I think that you get the dissertation written in the same amount of time anyway, and I would, whether you stretch that out over 1 or 2 years is up to you entirely. But the program is organized in such a way that you're learning in an incremental fashion, so that we work with you to identify, through the activities that Rachel mentioned, to identify your strengths and weaknesses and help you to bolster your reading and writing skills, your close reading and writing skills. And also the course content itself is dictated by the student interest. So there's a fair bit of flexibility there. And we try and ensure that most students are well equipped by the time teaching finishes at the end of semester to actually go on and write the dissertation on their own. So it's called a scaffolded approach to learning. So we build you up, and then we take away the scaffold at the end of semester 2, and lo and behold, you can stand on your own. Anyway, so just to come back to the full-time or part-time program, it's actually important to think about this because the costs are the same, because it's literally like for 1 year full-time is literally twice the amount it costs for 2 years part-time. But the university will allow payment plans, and it is quite flexible in that regard. You do need to have a credit card or debit card to pay your fees. It also allows, I think, if you don't have a credit or debit card, I think that it also allows some IBAN payments. Once your application is processed, you'll hear back from us fairly quickly. Just to understand as well that there is a process that occurs behind the scenes. There's a load of people who actually have a part to play, and I'm part of that mechanism. And it usually there's about maybe 4 points where it needs to be checked by people, by me, I think at stage 2 or 3, and then it goes back again to the graduate school. So it isn't just us who has oversight of this system, and it can take time. And particularly if over the summer period your home university, your own alma mater, isn't as well staffed as it might have been during semester time, just allow a little bit more time. So Rachel, if you want to move on to the next slide. Yeah, so I'm going to stop talking now, and I'm going to hand over. I think Barbara is standing by there, or Ian is there. Ian, are you there? First of all, is Ian there?
I think Ian might be having some technical issues at the moment, so maybe if we go
move
to
on
Barbara.
To Barbara, absolutely. Thank you, Barbara. I'll sign out now.
Oh, hello. So Kira has given a lot of information there that I was going to actually mention. But one of the reasons I decided to do the program was I had been introduced to a history of family in a different course, and I enjoyed the content so much, especially the migration part of it. And I was able to actually do quite a bit of migration on this course. The course seems to be so well laid out And once I emailed Ciara, I decided it was so well managed and I knew exactly what I would be doing and the time frame I'd be doing it in. But I think what some of you need to know is what happens if you're not in Ireland. I'm Welsh, but I'm in Canada. So because I was 7 hours behind everyone in Ireland, the biggest challenge was that I had to be really organized, even to the point of keeping a time chart so that I knew when podcasts would be coming through, when assignments were due, and when the daylight savings times would differ, which some people don't take into consideration, but there is a few weeks where you are totally different. I would download the podcast to my laptop as soon as they became available. Now, I have to tell you that I'm a retired teacher, so I was able to do this work all day, but I did download the podcast as soon as they became available, which was 6 o'clock in the morning for me. So I made sure to keep on top of that, but I could have downloaded them at any time as they were always available. And I think, telling a secret now, I actually used to take my laptop back to bed and do some notes until about 8 o'clock. And that's how I worked, but everybody has a different way of working. I kept in contact with people on the course by email, and I am still in contact with one from New York, and there was an ability to contact others through the forums. But as there was another Welsh person on the course, Ciara would put us together for special assignments and give us articles by Welsh authors. We would send our work back and forth by email. But I was also in phone contact with one student living in Ireland, and he helped with a few things that I couldn't do when I was on, because I wasn't on campus. I was concerned that I would not be able to fit in the writing of the dissertation because I was doing the course in 1 year. But because of the way it was structured, I was able to work on the dissertation almost straight away. And as the time went on, we were able to apply each week's knowledge to our work. I did miss the field trips though, and not being able to answer questions in the class. There were certain questions people would, Ciara would ask, and I would want to answer the questions, but I couldn't do that. But I did get to know people and got to know their voices, and then I got to see them at the convocation. My dissertation was based on an Irish neighbourhood in Cardiff, Wales, and it connected both my Irish and Welsh background, but I was able to do all the research from Canada. So I was able to put all my Canadian information, my Irish, Welsh information, so wherever you are, you can add your whatever interest you have to what you're doing. One particular essay I did was on war brides to Canada. So there's great flexibility as far as those things are concerned. I would definitely recommend the History of Family to others. There seems to be a huge growth of local historians and history societies, as there's so much to find out about past lives. And this course would give those historians the background they would need, not only to better understand the past, but understand where to find information and how to write about it. And that's me. Wow.
Thank you, Barbara. That's fantastic. And again, if there's any questions at the end, pop them into the chat there and we can answer those. I think we have Stuart next.
Hey, so first of all, I was going to say I'm actually a lot friendlier looking than that picture would I do believe. So I did the History of the Family MA 2 years ago, so I graduated in 2018. I personally chose to do the MA after I finished my undergraduate degree in UO, which is in history and sociology. What got me into the what interested me originally was I did a class called Irish Medical History, and that was my first actual dive into social history. So following on, and that was taught by the wonderful Dr. Ciara Breathnach. And following that, I did my undergraduate thesis on the history of lunatic asylums in Ireland. So going into it, I was like, I really like social history, and I wanted to look further into like the asylum system, as I'd like developed a strong interest in that. And I thought the history of the family course was perfect to do this. Also at the time when I was 23, like graduating my arts degree, I honestly hadn't a clue what I wanted to do in my life. So I was like, I know I like history and I really like UL. So it was great. It also bought me a year of time to figure out what I wanted to continue doing, and it totally did. And that was history. So I was like, before I did the MA, the word PhD was barely part of my vocabulary. And when I finished the MA, I was 100% sure that was the path that I wanted to take. In regards to what I learned on the course, I found the course was quite varied. Learned a lot about mainly social history, which is, big interest to myself personally, topics such as family structures and migration. But what I actually found was the main takeaway was the skills you learn throughout the course. Like when I originally started the course and they said, you're going to have to write a 20,000 word thesis on a specific topic, it's absolutely terrifying. But the skills are built up really well through, the activities and what's called the scaffolding structure. And you're a bit worried you might fall off the building when the scaffolding is removed, but no, you're actually fine. And it really does pace out really well. I think the program is like really unique in the fact it's so diverse too. I mean, it's called History of the Family, and the title itself sounds somewhat focused, but there's such a degree of flexibility that you can tailor your own research topic to. And as well, you've got the support structures that will help you along with that, which come in the form of the lecturers and your classmates too. So I didn't study online, I actually studied in the classroom, but the online presence of the other students was always felt. And it was the first time I'd ever done anything in this kind of blended learning environment. And I found it really cool because, you're basically like studying in, what's a multinational classroom. And, you hear a lot of interesting takes and perspectives and presentations, specifically I liked, on very unique insights and aspects of history that I never would have, read about before. For example, I never would have read any single thing about Welsh history before. We had 2 Welsh people in the class. What am I saying? Oh yeah, another thing I wanted to mention was it actually helps you to develop your research skills with the field trips. The field trips are really good. Like I had never went to an archive before the masters, and archives in themselves, I don't know if you guys have been there before, they're actually quite intimidating to go into for the first time. So I found that the trip to Dublin archives with the class was really good. But just even we had a class on explaining how to use an archive, how to order stuff, how to get the best of the materials you're researching. I thought it was great. So I ended up spending 1 day a week at the Limerick City and County Archives because I was researching ex-servicemen in the Limerick District Lunatic Asylum for my thesis. And it was really good. I actually got really into going to the archives once a week. And, it's fun as well to present the stuff you're learning to the other people in the class as you go along. So finish off, I'd say I would 100% recommend the masters to people, no matter what your own personal end goal is for it, because I know in my class everyone, the age is completely varied. In person, the ages varied from me who's 23 up to I think late 60s. So it's a very different background. Everyone wants to get something different out of it, and no matter what, everyone in the class that I've spoken to came out with something positive. And everyone comes out better off with better research skills. And for me, it managed to transition me and set me in the right direction for what I personally wanted to do a career in. And even my PhD now is focusing on the history of tuberculosis in Limerick, which is in a way an extension of the MA. And I'm still using the same research skills that I developed in the MA, pretty much every single day. but for the next, well, foreseeable future, forever, hopefully, if I get the career I want. But yeah, that's me.
Thank you, Stuart. So hopefully those two discussions there have given you an idea of what it's like from the student perspective. And I think now we're going to open it out to questions, aren't we, Kira? And I think Kira will be looking to see what questions there are in the chat section. So if you have questions, do type them in there for us.
So just to not have a vacuum there, Ian unfortunately can't join us. There's been a bit of a technical problem there, but sorry, just having a difficulty with technology there myself. I think my phone is ringing on my laptop. My apologies. Ian's work has focused on a clergyman's diary for his master's, and for his PhD, he's looking at a coroner's court in Dublin in actually from 1891 to 1900, and so he's using a variety of court records and taking a kind of a micro-historical and a prosopographical approach to the study of history. And again, these are skills that you'll learn and approaches that you'll learn on the MA History of Family, and we really do work individually with students to help them identify the skills that are most suited to their research. I see Rachel has sourced a fabulous image there from
it's John Fairbairn's chapbook of 1829.
Yeah, and it's and again, we've had students in the past who've focused on visual resources. I think that because one thing that we've learned with regards to the current pandemic is that we really are fairly reliant now on a lot of digital resources. And Stuart didn't mention it there, but Stuart takes a digital humanities approach to his research, and he would use an awful lot of digital objects in his work. And again, with regards to archival visits, we usually give you a lot of very handy tips. We have great colleagues in the archival world who help us to help you maximize any time you go to the archives. Barbara lives kind of a little bit away, to say the least, from her research repositories, and is a master in how to maximize research trips. I'm very happy to address any queries that you might have with regard. You're also required to do a personal statement, and I'm also very happy to read that for you if you need assistance with it. You don't have to do a personal statement as part of your application process, but for those of you who maybe don't have an undergraduate degree in history, it might be useful to mention things like, for example, you're interested in your own family history for the last 10 years, or you're working as a professional genealogist, anything else that might support your application, just put it into the personal statement. And as I said, I'm happy to assist there. I'm gonna let Rachel wrap this up, actually.
So if we don't have any other questions, I mean, again, as Kira said, just really to reiterate that both of us are very happy if you want to come to us with any other questions that you have. I think hopefully, as you've heard from the students as well, I think everyone who does the course finds their own particular research interest and comes away with something very different and very unique. And to be honest, I think everyone who's done the course seems to have enjoyed it. And the other thing I would say is that each year the students that have studied together, no matter where they are in the world, there's always groups of them that will keep in touch. I was delighted actually on Twitter the other day. There was a student of mine from Ireland who was this is about 6 months ago, he was in Australia and met up with 2 students that had been in the same group as him, and they sent me a photo of them both all having a cup of tea or something together, you know, and it was just lovely to think that the bond that had started in the class was still there. So it is really a very friendly environment to study in. I think people have a lot of fun, and you know, it's wonderful to come out with this 20,000 word dissertation at the end of it. So hopefully some of you will decide to join us next year, and you'll be very welcome when you do. So thank you for attending, and hopefully we've been able to answer your questions for you there.